Hello guys, in this video I want to show you how to install Linux Mint on your computer. This video is part of a video series. We are in part 2 of 5 now. If you haven't seen the last video, just have a look to this. I also put a link to it into the video description. For our installation we need an USB stick. At least it has to be 4 GB of size. It should be between 4 and 64 GB. If you have USB sticks which are bigger than that, some older systems might have problems with it. We want to delete everything on the USB stick. We want to write the Linux Mint system onto the USB stick. This is then like a installation DVD which we just put into our computer, and then we install Linux Mint from this boot stick. We need this, and then we need to download a few things, and for that I download Linux Mint. I go to the homepage. Of course I put you the link into the video description, and here we see the latest Linux Mint version 22.1. In a few days the new version 22.2 arrives. An update of 22.1 to 22.2 is very easy, so it's completely irrelevant which Linux Mint version we are installing. We just take the latest one and then we hit download here at the Cinnamon edition. And then here we can select between different servers. I'm personally staying in Ireland, so I take Ireland as a download server here. Now the download of the Linux Mint version starts, and then we go to etcher.io. This program we need to download for our USB stick preparation, so I hit download here, and in our download list we take Etcher for Windows, because at the current time I am here on a Windows system. It's completely irrelevant if you have Windows 10 or Windows 11. The installation process is completely the same, so this doesn't matter at all. And I take the download link here for our Windows. Now we split the video, kind of, because now we have to decide, do we want to install Linux Mint replacing our Windows installation, or do we want to install Linux Mint next to our Windows installation, so that in the start we can select which operating system do I want to start now. Do I want to start Windows or do I want to start Linux today? If you want to install it next to your Windows system, then we have to do an additional step. If you want to erase your complete Windows system and just put Linux on your computer, then you don't need this one following step. I put you timestamps into the description where you see the next chapter begins, and then if you want to erase everything, you don't have to do the step I'm showing you now. So this step I'm showing you now is only for these who want to install Linux alongside your Windows system. So I open up the search here and we search for partitioning or create and format hard disk partitions. So I open up this window here, and here we see our C partition. And this C partition I want to shrink down that we have space for our Linux Mint installation. So I right click this one and select shrink volume. Inside this menu here, this takes a second. We can enter the amount of space we want to shrink. At least for a production system, I would recommend you 50 GB. So this would be 50,000 megabytes. And if you have much space, then I would recommend you just do half the size to Windows and the other half of the size to Linux. So just half it. In this case, Windows only gives me 32 GB. This is completely okay. So I could press shrink here now, and this is the additional step you have to do if you want to install it alongside Windows. But I don't want to do this, so I hit cancel here. So I close this one back again. Now we are all together back, and we have to wait until our ISO file has been finished downloading. When everything's ready, then we can open the Balena Etcher setup.exe file. So I open that one up. And now we need to plug in our USB drive, which we want to burn now to a kind of USB boot stick that we can install Linux Mint from this USB stick to our computer. Of course, afterwards you could just reuse your USB stick again and format it, and then just use it for data. But this process we are doing now erases all the data on your USB stick, so make sure that there's nothing important on that. And then I select here flash from file, then I go to the downloads section here. Here I have my Linux Mint 22.1 version. I open that one up, and then I select a target. Then we select our USB stick here. This is my USB stick here. I select it, and then I hit flash. Very easy, just 3 steps for this one. This takes a moment. We are asked if we want to allow the changes to our device. I click yes, and then the flash process is starting. This takes between 5 and 10 minutes. While this is flashing the USB stick, we have to talk about our next step, because at our next step we have to boot our computer from this specific USB stick, and this is completely different for every hardware manufacturer. So if you, for example, have a Lenovo laptop and then we ask for boot from USB, then we see instructions how to do that. We see Copilot search, we see something from the Lenovo support, or we even see some videos how to do that. So if you want, I would recommend you this via a video. There a person shows you, okay, what to do if you want to boot from a USB stick. And this is always shutting your computer down, then putting in your USB stick if you don't have it inside your computer yet. And then you start the computer, and while the computer is turning on, then you have to press, I guess here on this Lenovo, the person presses the F2 key. Sometimes you have to press the F2 key, and then you go into the BIOS, and here in the BIOS you go to the boot section, which is up there. Also, the person here disables secure boot under security. This is also very important, so I also recommend you this, especially when we are using Linux, of course. And then afterwards he goes to the boot menu and then changes the boot settings here that we can start from our USB stick. But again, this is completely different between hardware manufacturers and between the models of a hardware manufacturer. So this could be different on every system. This is the step I can't show you for your own device. So you have to search for it yourself, but there are some rules. So you access your boot menu or your BIOS settings via the F2 key, the F8 key, F10, F9 or F12 key, and also sometimes the escape key or the delete key. If you press one of these keys while your computer is starting, you are getting whether to the boot menu. This is the best one. Many systems have that on F12, and other systems have only the BIOS setup, which sits normally under delete, F2 or the escape key. So you press this and then you search, hey, where can I choose that my computer boots the USB stick before my Windows installation, and then the Linux installation should start. But trust me, you will get this done. Many users before you just switched from Linux and they had also no clue before. And if you have any further questions, there is so much help you can get right on the internet. And also with AI, for example, it's much more easier these days. Also, for example, to ask the AI with screenshots or photos, hey, what should I press if I want to start Linux on my computer? This could be also an option. Maybe this also works out for you. This is it to the preparations, and now I'm waiting until this USB stick has been flashed. Then I restart the computer and then I activate the boot menu, and then we see us again where we have our USB stick started, where our Linux Mint will appear. So see you in a second. I'm at my boot manager right now. I choose in my case the USB stick. This could also mean, for example, Intenso, generic disk, SanDisk or something like this. Then I'm choosing this one. And now if you had done everything right, of course, the menu before could be completely different on your hardware manufacturer. You see this menu here, Start Linux Mint 22.1 Cinnamon 64-bit in my case right now. The number doesn't matter here. Now we are all back together on one track and we can continue our Linux Mint installation. If you don't press anything, then the Linux Mint starts automatically. Otherwise, you could select something else. We want to select the very first thing with our arrow keys and then hit the Enter key just to select this, and then our Linux Mint installation medium starts from our USB stick. This takes a moment, especially from the USB stick, so we will need 1 or 2 minutes until our computer has been started from our USB stick. After a few minutes, we see our Install Linux Mint disk here above. So I double click this one, and if we have done everything right, we see our installation window some moments later. It takes some time. We are booting from a USB stick. And here we see it. Now we can choose our language. I stick to English here and then hit continue. Then I select my keyboard layout and then I hit continue again. Afterwards, we can install the multimedia codecs. And now I'm getting an option to configure Secure Boot. I don't want to use Secure Boot. If you see this, then Secure Boot is still enabled on your computer. So you have to disable it right after we finish the installation. This is completely fine, but I highly recommend you not to configure Secure Boot. So to disable this one, because otherwise you will have some additional hurdles when it comes, for example, to virtual machines and, for example, some drivers. So I highly recommend you not to configure Secure Boot on your system. If you want to make your computer secure, we will do this right on the next screen. I hit continue because now I'm getting the option, okay, install Linux Mint alongside Windows Boot Manager, or do I want to erase the disk and install Linux Mint? I personally want to erase and install Linux Mint. If you want to install Linux Mint alongside your Windows system, of course you choose the first option. And here I get some advanced features. I could select, I go to this, and here you can now use LVM with the new Linux installation, and especially you can now encrypt the new Linux Mint installation for security. So I personally would recommend you only if you have a laptop, and if you could lose your laptop, for example, at the airport or some other places. For this, I could highly recommend this. If you just use your computer at your home, then you might not need this, but of course you can do this. But please be aware of that. If you lose the password later for this encryption, no one can restore your data, then your data is gone. So yeah, please have this in mind. This could be very important. For me, this is okay. I want to do this today, but I guess 70% of you don't want to do this. So you don't have to do this. You could just press none, but I'm doing this now a bit more complicated with the encryption we see here. So I hit OK here, and then I select install now, and then I personally can now choose a security key. This is because I selected the encryption. So I type in a security key. Please be aware of that you have to enter this password every time you start your computer. So yeah, just be aware of that. And if you want, you could also enable a recovery key. You don't need this particular, but you can do this optionally. I personally leave it unchecked and just hit install now. This takes a bit time. We are now getting all together some questions what the installer will done, and especially which formatting will be applied. So I wait for a second here. Now we're getting the question, write changes to the disks. It is okay for me, so I select continue. To be honest, you always want to select continue here unless you see something very, very wrong here. But honestly, I never saw anything wrong here. And I installed many, many different computers. So this would probably be okay if you just hit continue here. So we do this, and now we choose our time zone. This is okay for me, so I select continue, and then I can type in my name. I'm called Jean, so I just write it like this. Your first name is very appropriate for that, but of course you could choose, for example, also a nickname or some other formal name. Your computer's name, you could just leave it as the default, but you could also, for example, define Lenovo 2017, for example, when you buy the Lenovo laptop, or something else. Or I could just define it whatever I want. For example, I could also call it like the YouTube channel Linux Art. Now I choose a password here. This is the password with which I have to install new software, and if I want to log in requiring my password, then I have to retype my password every time I start my computer. And if you enable the encryption, you may want to do login automatically, because before the user starts, you have to type in your encryption password, of course. So if you don't want to type in two passwords when you start your computer, you may use this one. I personally use this one now, but otherwise you could of course require my password to log in. This would be usually the option, I guess, also for 70% of the people who are watching this video. But what I have to say, please never select this encrypt my home folder, because this is a very old option of Linux Mint, and I personally would not recommend it because it is considered unsafe in some circumstances and also very old, and also doesn't make fun if you have to recover your data, and sometimes this doesn't work if you hadn't backed up everything of your data. So this could be very tricky, so please never select this. If you want to encrypt your data, then the option we discussed a few steps before, this would be the option, not this one. Please never select this one. I personally select now login automatically, and then I hit continue, and now our installation is already running. Great. This takes about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we are almost done for this video, but watch it until the end. We have some things which give you a great start for your Linux Mint installation. Okay, after a few minutes, we finished our installation now. Now I can restart the computer. I click on this one, and now we are getting the message, please remove the installation medium, then press enter. So I plug out my USB stick and then I press enter. And if we have done everything right, we will see our Linux Mint logo, or maybe a password entry for our unlock. In my case, I personally now see the unlock field. So this is great. This is a part of Linux Mint right now. So perfect. If you installed Linux Mint alongside Windows, and Windows is still booting up, then have a look into the BIOS again. At first, have a look if Secure Boot is disabled, and on the other side, have a look if your boot priority is right. And for example, Ubuntu is at the first position, and or the Windows bootloader is on the very last position. So, okay. Now I can type in my password to unlock my Linux Mint installation. So this looks good. We wait for a few seconds, and then we will see our Linux Mint started up. Perfect, this looks good. So I disable this field here, show this dialog at startup. This is a great dialog. If you want to read something, yeah, that's a great dialog. But if you don't want to, that's also okay. You can open up this dialog always again if we go up to the menu on the left bottom corner, and if we search for welcome, then we can access this welcome screen again. But now there are some few steps I want to show you now, and the first step is to have a look if our font size is okay. If the font size is too small, for example, we can change this font size globally very easily. Many users don't know this trick, so I show it to you. So we select font selection here, and now here in font settings, text scaling factor, I can scale all texts on the Linux Mint machine. So this it could be a right feature if you just want to make the fonts a bit bigger. For example, I go now with 1.1. Very easy, very nice. This is it for the first thing, and now we want to have a look at a very smooth and fast startup and introduction to our Linux Mint world. And for that, I show you an application I wrote myself, and this is named linuxassistant.org. This is a free and open source software for your Linux computer, which takes you through the first steps and beyond of your Linux installation and automates some things which might come in very handy in the future. So I hit download.deb here, and then we see our file. We can just click on this in our download menu here, and then we see a new window, install package. I hit this one, I type in my password, hit authenticate, and then we wait for finishing it. This looks great, perfect. The installation was successful. I can close now this window. I can close our Firefox here. Yeah, it's a little bit a different icon. And now we can choose the menu, and inside here I type in Linux Assistant into the search bar, and we can open this one up here. Perfect. And now if everything's right, we see our welcome screen here. Nice. I hit next. I hit let's start. And here we see a first field, first steps after installation. This one we are doing right now. So I open that one up, select let's start, and here we see our browser selection. So we could select different web browsers. So yeah, choose whatever web browser you want. I'm choosing Chromium as a second browser because I very like Chromium, but of course you could also choose Brave, for example, or Google Chrome. Very easy. I hit next. And then we select our Office software. We stick with LibreOffice today. In the next video of this series, we are talking more about Office software and also email software, for example. So yeah, it could be completely fine if you wait until this. If you don't want to wait until this and you want to use Microsoft Documents in a better font recognition and such things, then you might want to also choose only Office, for example, or also WPS Office if you want or if you know it. So I hit next, and then we see communication software. Great. We see Thunderbird, Jitsi, Element, Signal, Discord, Zoom, Microsoft Teams. Thunderbird is pre-selected because it comes with the Linux Mint installation right into it. So if you want to select some additional software, it's completely fine. I highly recommend you to leave Thunderbird installed. So I personally do nothing here and hit next. And then I can activate a hotkey if I want to. I say yes, setup hotkey in my case, but you don't have to. And then I choose the automatic configuration because this is where the magic happens. Here we see update the system to the latest version. We want to choose this. We also want to choose install multimedia codecs and also automatic snapshots and automatic update manager configuration. We want everything. That are great options. Please only choose automatic snapshots if you have the disk space available. So you need at least 100 gigabytes of free disk space for your Linux Mint installation for only the automatic snapshots of Linux Mint. So this takes up a lot of disk space. So if you don't have this disk space, it's completely fine to disable this. This is just an additional feature. And I personally, I'm not a big fan out of this, but it could be helpful in very specific circumstances. So just enable this if you have plenty of disk space. I personally don't enable this here right now. And then I hit next. Okay, then I type in my password and then I hit authenticate, and then this system is doing everything. This takes a moment. After a few minutes, we already see the Chromium web browser, for example. I personally opened this one up, and because I'm on an encrypted system and I chose the automatic login, so I didn't need to type in my user password when the computer starts, we are getting a very new window here. Please choose a password for new keyring. Because my Linux Mint installation is encrypted, I could leave this blank and hit continue. If you just did the normal things, kind of, so you just chose on your installation, please ask for a password when you start your computer for your normal user, and then you won't ever see this window. This is only if you chose login automatically, and if you chose this, then we have to create a keyring and we have to define it. But because I am already on an encrypted Linux system here, because I chose this on the installation, I can hit continue here without entering a password, and I store the password unencrypted because my whole installation of Linux Mint is encrypted, and for me this is enough. So I hit continue, and that's fine. This is just the encryption module of your user account, which some applications might use to store some secrets, and this completely works automatically in the background. If you log in into your user regularly with every start, then you never see this window. But in my specific case, I am seeing this window only once after the installation if I started such an application like Chromium, for example. And this is now done, and we never see this window again. So perfect. Just wanted to show you how I would configure this keyring in this case. This is it for this video. So we had a great start with our Linux Mint installation. Linux Assistant is just doing the last things, and afterwards you could start right through with using your Linux computer. But we have 3 more videos to go into our series. So in the next videos, we are talking about Office software, about email software, about configuring your system, how to use the file manager properly and such things, and also when it comes to security, what to keep attention of, how to do proper backups and such things. So if you don't want to miss this, please leave a like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. This would be very helpful for us, and you don't miss any future video. So a win-win situation. If you have any questions, just write them down in the comments, and then I will talk about them into the future videos, so we can reach more people in the Linux world and give you a better start if you are completely new in the Linux world. And if you are, very warm welcome. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope the installation of Linux Mint was as successful as we saw it here. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye!